Mrs. Mercer, I need you to understand what we are facing here. Your daughter's blood work has come back, and the results are not what we hoped for. Vera Mercer gripped the armrest of the plastic hospital chair so hard her knuckles turned white. Across from her, Dr. Evelyn Porter spoke with the measured calm of someone who had delivered devastating news too many times to count. Just tell me. Whatever it is, just say it plainly. The leukemia has not responded to the last round of chemotherapy the way we needed it to. Iris is going to need a bone marrow transplant, and she is going to need it soon. How soon? Weeks, Mrs. Mercer. Not months. Vera closed her eyes. Behind her lids, she could see her daughter's face. 9 years old. Dark hair that caught the light. Those strange, beautiful eyes that had always made strangers stop and comment. One grey. One hazel. Eyes that did not come from Vera's side of the family at all. We have searched the National Registry, Dr. Porter continued. We have contacted every compatible database we have access to. But Iris has an extremely rare tissue type. We have not found a match. So what do we do? What are the options? The doctor paused. The pause itself was an answer. There is one option we have not fully explored. Biological family members are statistically the most likely matches for rare tissue types. Parents, siblings, grandparents. I do not have siblings. My parents are both gone. What about Iris's father? The question landed in the small office like a stone dropped into still water. Vera felt the ripples of it spreading outward, touching everything she had built over 9 years, threatening to undo it all. Her father is not listed on the birth certificate. I understand that family situations can be complicated. But Mrs. Mercer, your daughter's life may depend on finding a compatible donor. If there is anyone at all who might share her genetic makeup. Vera stared at the doctor's desk. There was a small framed photograph there. A family. 2 parents, 3 children, a golden retriever. The kind of family that appeared in advertisements for life insurance. There might be someone, she heard herself say. But he does not know Iris exists. Dr. Porter leaned forward slightly. Then I would strongly encourage you to tell him. Welcome back to another powerful story, my beloved listeners. Kindly tell where you're watching from and what time it is where you're at. If you're new here, prepare for a story of betrayal, unexpected love, and what truly makes a family. Drop everything and listen closely. This tale of heartbreak and redemption might just change how you view love and family forever. Vera sat alone in the family waiting room long after Dr. Porter had gone. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that particular shade of institutional pallor that made even healthy people look slightly ill. On the wall, a poster encouraged hand washing. Another listed warning signs of stroke. Cheerful information for a place where cheer came to die. She pulled out her phone and stared at it. The screen was cracked in one corner, a small web of broken glass she had never bothered to repair. She told herself it was because she was practical, because phone screens still worked with cracks, because there was always something more pressing than vanity repairs. But maybe it was because she had become comfortable with broken things. Maybe broken things felt honest. She scrolled through her contacts. She did not know why she still had his number saved. She had changed phones twice in 10 years. Each time, she had transferred the contact. Each time, she had told herself she would delete it later. Each time, later never came. Douglas Wainwright. The name sat on her screen like a ghost. Or perhaps like a debt she had never paid. She thought about what Dr. Porter had said. Your daughter's life may depend on it. She thought about what her pride had cost her over the years. The questions she had never answered. The father her daughter had never known. The lie she had told herself so many times it had become a kind of truth. He did not want us. He made his choice. We are better off alone. But now alone might mean dead. And Vera could live with many things, but she could not live with that. She put the phone away and walked toward the elevator. Whatever call she was going to make, she would not make it here, in this building that smelled of antiseptic and fear. She would go to Iris first. She would see her daughter. She would remind herself what she was fighting for. The pediatric oncology ward was on the 4th floor. Vera had learned its geography over the past several months, the way soldiers learned battlefields. She knew which nurses were kind and which were merely efficient. She knew which vending machines took exact change and which swallowed coins without producing anything in return. She knew which corner of the family lounge had the best cell reception and which bathroom had a lock that actually worked. She pushed open the door to room 412 and found her daughter sitting up in bed, a crossword puzzle book open on her lap, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Mom." Iris looked up. Her face was thin now, thinner than it should be. The illness had carved away the softness of childhood, leaving something older in its place. "What did the doctor say?" Vera sat on the edge of the bed and took her daughter's hand. The 4 lines snaked up from the back of it, disappearing into a machine that beeped with quiet regularity. "She said we need to find someone who can donate something to help you get better. Something called bone marrow." "Is that like blood?" "Sort of. It is inside your bones. It helps your body make blood." Iris considered this with the seriousness of a child who had spent too much time around medical equipment to be frightened by medical explanations. "Does it hurt to donate?" "A little. But not too much. Are you going to donate yours?" Vera felt her throat tighten. "I cannot, sweetheart. My marrow does not match yours well enough. We need to find someone whose marrow is more like yours." "Like who?" Iris asked the question casually, as if asking about the weather. But Vera could see the sharper question hiding underneath. The question Iris had been circling around for years, getting closer and closer with each passing birthday. "That is what I need to figure out. Is it my father?" The words hung in the air between them. Vera had always known this moment would come. She had rehearsed answers in her head, careful explanations designed to protect both her daughter and herself. But none of those rehearsals had prepared her for this, for the weight of a child's eyes asking a question that could not be deflected any longer. "Yes. It might be your father." Iris nodded slowly. Her expression was not surprised. Children, Vera had learned, often knew more than adults gave them credit for. They listened at doorways. They watched faces. They assembled truths from fragments of overheard conversations and unexplained silences. "Are you going to tell him about me now?" "Yes." "Will he want to help?" Vera looked at her daughter's face, at those strange beautiful eyes that had always been a map she could not read. One grey. One hazel. A genetic quirk she had seen only once before, in a face she had spent 10 years trying to forget. "I hope so," she said. "I really hope so." That night, after Iris had fallen asleep, Vera sat in the hard plastic chair beside her bed and made a decision. She would not call. A call could be ignored. A call could go to voicemail. A call was too easy to refuse. She would go to him. She would drive to the Hudson Valley, to the house where everything had fallen apart, and she would stand in front of Douglas Wainwright and tell him the truth. She would give him no chance to avoid her. She would give herself no chance to retreat. In the morning, she arranged for her sister to stay with Iris. She packed a small bag with a change of clothes and the photograph she kept in her wallet, the one of Iris taken 6 months ago, before the illness had become visible. Then she got in her car and started driving south. The distance between Burlington and the Hudson Valley was roughly 4 hours. Vera had made the drive once before, 10 years ago, heading in the opposite direction. That time, she had driven through the night, her eyes blurred with tears, her heart broken into pieces so small she was not sure they would ever fit back together. This time, she kept her eyes dry. She focused on the road, on the autumn trees that lined the highway, on the practical matter of putting miles behind her. She did not let herself think too much about what she would say. If she thought about it, she might turn around. Thornfield House sat on the banks of the Hudson River about 2 hours north of New York City. It had been built in the 1860s by the first Wainwright to make his fortune, a shipping magnate who wanted something to rival the estates of the European aristocracy he had spent his youth envying. Over the generations, the house had survived fires and floods and the slow erosion of old money. The current generation had diversified into logistics and real estate, keeping the house maintained, keeping the family name in the society pages. Vera had been there once before. She had spent 8 months there, in fact, restoring the gilded plasterwork in the ballroom ceiling. She had fallen in love there. She had had her heart destroyed there. She had left carrying a secret she had kept ever since. The gates were the same. Wrought iron, topped with spikes, flanked by stone pillars carved with the Wainwright family crest. The long driveway was lined with oaks that had been planted when the house was built, their leaves now turning gold and crimson in the October light. The house itself rose at the end of the drive like something from another century. Grey stone, white trim, tall windows that reflected the afternoon sky. Vera parked her car and sat for a moment, her hands on the steering wheel, her heart beating too fast. She had told herself she would never come back here. She had sworn it, in fact, driving away that night 10 years ago. She had promised herself that this house and everyone in it would become nothing more than a closed chapter, a story she no longer told. But here she was. Because promises made to yourself mattered less than promises owed to your child. She got out of the car and walked to the front door. She rang the bell. She waited. A woman in a dark suit answered. Not a maid in uniform, but some kind of personal assistant, professional and polished. "May I help you? My name is Vera Mercer. I am here to see Douglas Wainwright. I do not have an appointment, but the matter is urgent and personal." The woman's expression did not change. She had been trained, clearly, to handle unexpected visitors with discretion. "Mr. Wainwright is in his study. May I tell him what this concerns? He will know when he sees me." The woman hesitated for just a moment, then stepped aside to let Vera enter. The foyer was exactly as Vera remembered it. Marble floors, a sweeping staircase, portraits of Wainwright ancestors lining the walls. Money made visible, generations of it, accumulated and preserved and displayed. "Please wait here. I will inform Mr. Wainwright that he has a visitor." The woman disappeared down a hallway. Vera stood alone in the foyer, surrounded by the ghosts of her own memory. There was a door to the ballroom, where she had spent months on scaffolding, carefully brushing gold leaf onto damaged cornices. There was the hallway that led to the kitchen, where she and Douglas had shared late-night dinners when his family was away. There was the staircase she had climbed to reach the room that had been hers, a guest room repurposed for the craftsperson in residence. She closed her eyes and breathed. The house smelled the same. Old wood, furniture polish, the faint mustiness of a building that had stood for over a century. It smelled like the past. It smelled like heartbreak. "Mrs. Mercer." She opened her eyes. The assistant had returned. "Mr. Wainwright will see you in the study. Please follow me." Vera followed. The hallway seemed longer than she remembered, each step carrying her closer to something she had spent 10 years avoiding. The assistant stopped at a heavy wooden door, knocked once, and opened it. "Your visitor, Mr. Wainwright." Vera stepped through the door. The assistant closed it behind her. The study was large and lined with books. Walnut paneling, leather chairs, a fireplace that looked like it had seen decades of use. Tall windows overlooked the river. On the walls hung maps and paintings, and a single portrait of a woman Vera recognized. Catherine Wainwright. Douglas's mother. The woman who had destroyed everything. But the woman in the portrait was not the person Vera had come to see. Her attention was focused on the man standing by the window, his back to the door, his shoulders framed against the afternoon light. He turned. Douglas Wainwright was 42 years old now. His dark hair was threaded with grey at the temples. His face, which had once carried the easy confidence of inherited privilege, now showed the lines of someone who had learned that money could not solve every problem. He was still handsome, still possessed of that commanding presence that had always made rooms feel smaller when he entered them. But it was his eyes that Vera noticed most. Those strange eyes, one grey and one hazel, that she saw every day in her daughter's face. Vera. Her name came out of him like something long held and finally released. There was shock in his voice, and something else beneath it. Something that sounded almost like pain. "Hello, Douglas." He stared at her. The silence stretched between them, filled with everything that had never been said. "My assistant told me someone was here on personal business." "She did not say it was you." He paused. "It has been 10 years. 9 years and 8 months." The precision seemed to catch him off guard. He moved away from the window, closer to where she stood, but stopped several feet away, as if uncertain how near he was permitted to come. "You left without a word. I came back from the city that evening and you were gone. Your room was empty. Your tools were packed. There was no note. Nothing. Your mother explained the situation." "My mother. She told me about your engagement. To Constance Fairfax. She said the announcement would be made at the charity gala." She offered me $20,000 to leave quietly. Douglas's expression shifted. Confusion first, then something darker, something that looked like the early stages of a terrible understanding. What engagement? The engagement she said you had agreed to. The marriage that was being arranged between your family and the Fairfaxes. There was no engagement. The words hung in the air. Simple words. 4 of them. But they landed on Vera like something falling from a great height. Your mother said you called me a pleasant diversion. She said I was useful while I was novel, but that you had obligations. Responsibilities. A future that did not include someone like me. I never said those words. Douglas's voice had gone rough. I would never have said those words. I was in love with you. I was planning to tell my family about us. I was trying to figure out how to do it in a way that would minimize the damage. She said you had made your choice. She said you were choosing your family. I did not even know there was a choice to make. I came home from that meeting in the city and you were gone. My mother said you had taken money and left. I did not believe her about the money, but you were gone, and I had no way to find you. Vera's legs felt unsteady. She moved to one of the leather chairs and sat down without asking permission. Her mind was racing, trying to reorganize 10 years of certainty into something new, something that did not match the story she had told herself. I did not take her money. I know that now. I think I knew it then. But you were gone. You would not return my calls. Your cousin in Vermont refused to speak with me. I hired someone to look for you. He searched for months. You searched for me. I searched for you for over a year. And then eventually I stopped, because I thought you had decided I was not worth the complications of my family. I thought you had chosen to leave. Vera stared at him. This man standing before her, this stranger who looked like someone she had once loved. He was telling a story she had never heard, a story that contradicted everything she had believed for a decade. She lied to us. Yes. He sat down in the chair across from her, suddenly looking exhausted. My mother lied to us both. She told you I had rejected you. She told me you had abandoned me. Why would she do that? Because she thought she was protecting the family. Because she believed you were a threat to everything she had spent her life building. Because she could not accept that I might choose someone she had not selected for me. Vera thought of Catherine Wainwright. The cold eyes. The pearls worn to breakfast. The way she had looked at Vera during those 8 months, assessing, calculating, deciding. She had seemed like a force of nature, immovable and inevitable. Where is she now? Your mother. She died 3 years ago. Stroke. She was gone within hours. So she is not here to answer for what she did. No. Douglas looked at the portrait on the wall, at the painted face of the woman who had orchestrated their separation. She died believing she had succeeded. She died not knowing that her lies had done exactly what she feared most. What do you mean? I never married. I never found anyone else. I came close once or twice, but something always felt wrong. I kept comparing every woman I met to you, and they kept falling short. Vera felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. She had not come here to cry. She had not come here to revisit the past. She had come here with a purpose, and she could not lose sight of it. Douglas, I did not come here to talk about what happened between us. Then why did you come? She reached into her bag and pulled out the photograph. Iris, 6 months ago, standing in their garden in Vermont, laughing at something outside the frame. Her dark hair catching the sunlight. Her eyes bright and vivid. One grey. One hazel. She handed the photograph to Douglas without explanation. He took it. He looked at it. For a long moment, he did not speak. His face went through several expressions, none of them easy to read. Her eyes, he said finally. His voice was barely above a whisper. Yes. She is mine. Yes. Douglas sat very still. The photograph trembled slightly in his hand. Vera watched him as understanding arrived, not all at once, but in waves, each one deeper than the last. How old is she? 9. She will be 10 in February. 9 years. He looked up from the photograph. You have had a daughter for 9 years. Our daughter. And I did not know. Your mother. My mother is dead. She has been dead for 3 years. Whatever she did, whatever lies she told, she is not here to answer for them. But you are. You kept this from me for 9 years. I kept it because I believed what she told me. I believed you had chosen your family's expectations over anything we had. I believed you saw me as a diversion. And you never thought to ask me directly. You never thought I deserved the chance to deny what she said. Vera felt the weight of the accusation. He was right. She could argue context, she could explain her fear, but he was right. She had made a decision about his character without ever asking him. I was afraid. I was afraid that if I asked, you would confirm everything she said. So instead you ran. And you took my daughter with you. I did not know I was pregnant when I left. I found out 3 weeks later. And by then I was so certain that you did not want me that I could not imagine you would want our child either. Douglas stood up abruptly. He walked to the window and stood with his back to her, looking out at the river. His shoulders were rigid. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled, the voice of a man holding onto something that threatened to break loose. What is her name? Iris. Iris Mercer. Iris. He repeated the name slowly, as if tasting it. It is a beautiful name. She is a beautiful child. Tell me about her. Vera watched his back, this man who was a stranger and yet not. This man whose face she had spent 10 years trying to forget, whose eyes looked back at her every morning from her daughter's face. She is curious. She asks questions about everything. She wants to be a marine biologist. She has read every book about ocean life in our local library. She is smart and stubborn and she notices things that most people miss. What does she know about me? She knows she has a father who lives far away. She knows that he and I were not able to stay together. She has been asking more questions lately. What kind of questions? Why her eyes are different from mine. Why she has never met you. Whether you know she exists. Douglas turned from the window. His face was wet. He wiped at his eyes with the back of his hand, the gesture of someone unused to crying. Why are you telling me now? After all this time. Why now? Because Iris is sick. The words fell into the space between them like stones into deep water. Douglas went still. What do you mean, sick? She has leukemia. She needs a bone marrow transplant. The doctors have searched the registries and found no match. Biological family members are the most likely donors. You might be the only person who can save her life. For a long moment, Douglas did not speak. He stood by the window, the afternoon light falling across his face, his expression moving through shock and grief and something that looked like determination. Where is she? Burlington General Hospital. Pediatric oncology. Then that is where I need to be. Vera had not expected this. She had prepared herself for resistance, for questions, for negotiation. She had prepared herself for the possibility that he would refuse, or demand proof, or need time to process. She had not prepared herself for immediate action. You would come with me. Right now. My daughter is dying. My daughter who I did not know existed until 5 minutes ago. You think I'm going to stay here and think about it? Douglas, there is so much we need to discuss. 9 years of. 9 years of what? 9 years of conversations we should have had. 9 years of birthdays I missed. 9 years of moments that are gone and will never come back. Yes. There is much to discuss. But my daughter is sick, and she needs help, and everything else can wait. He crossed to his desk and pressed an intercom button. Margaret, cancel my appointments for the rest of the week. All of them. And have someone bring my car around. Yes, Mr. Wainwright. His assistant's voice crackled through the speaker. Is everything all right? No. But it is going to be. He turned back to Vera. How far is Burlington? About 4 hours. Then we should leave now. They drove north in Douglas's car, a black sedan that probably cost more than Vera made in a year. She sat in the passenger seat and watched the landscape scroll past, the same autumn trees she had driven through that morning, now painted in the gold light of late afternoon. For the first few miles, neither of them spoke. The silence was heavy, filled with everything that needed to be said and could not be said in a moving car. Finally, Douglas spoke. Tell me more about her. About Iris. Vera considered where to begin. There was so much. 9 years of daily life compressed into whatever word she could find. She started walking early. 10 months. I think she was trying to reach my art supplies. She used to watch me work and she wanted to touch everything. You still do restoration work? I have my own business now. Small. Mostly private clients. Antique furniture, decorative arts, some architectural elements. That is good. You were always talented. The compliment felt strange, coming from him. A bridge across 10 years of silence. Her first words were mama and fish. She has always been obsessed with the ocean. I do not know where it came from. We live in Vermont. But she could identify species of tropical fish before she could read. What is she like? As a person. Direct. Uncomfortably direct, sometimes. She asks questions that adults spend their whole lives avoiding. She says what she thinks. She does not see the point in pretending. She sounds remarkable. She is. More silence. The car ate up miles of highway. Vera. Yes. I need you to understand something. I am not going to pretend the last 10 years did not happen. I am not going to pretend I am not angry about what was kept from me. But right now, in this moment, the only thing that matters is Iris. The only thing that matters is making sure she survives. I know. Whatever we need to work out between us, we will work it out. But later. After she is safe. Vera nodded. She felt something loosen in her chest. Whatever she had expected from this encounter, this was not it. This was something she had not prepared for. Douglas. Yes. I am sorry. I know that does not fix anything. I know it does not give you back the years you missed. But I am sorry. He did not respond immediately. His hands tightened on the steering wheel, then relaxed. I am sorry too. I am sorry I did not fight harder to find you. I am sorry I believed, even for a moment, that you would take money and disappear. I am sorry my mother was the person she was. She is not here to blame anymore. No. And even if she were, blaming her would not change what happened. It would just give us somewhere to put our anger. Where should we put it, then? I do not know. Maybe we should just set it down somewhere and walk away from it. Maybe we should focus on what we can still build instead of what we lost. The sun was setting by the time they reached the hospital. Burlington General was a sprawling complex of connected buildings, lit up against the darkening sky. Douglas parked in the visitor lot and they walked together toward the entrance. What should I say to her? Douglas's voice was quieter now. When I meet her. What do I say? Let me introduce you first. Let me explain. But Douglas, she is smart. She will figure it out quickly. How do you want me to handle it? Honestly. She values honesty above almost everything. They entered through the main doors and took the elevator to the 4th floor. The pediatric oncology ward was quiet in the evening hours. Most of the young patients were sleeping or watching television. The hallways smelled of antiseptic and institutional food. Vera stopped outside room 412. She might be asleep. But if she is awake, she will have questions. A lot of them. I am ready. Vera pushed open the door. Iris was awake. She was sitting up in bed, a book about coral reefs open on her lap, her reading glasses perched on her nose. When she saw her mother, her face brightened. When she saw the man behind her mother, her expression shifted to something more complex. Mom. You are back. Her eyes moved to Douglas. Who is this? Vera crossed to the bed and sat on the edge of it. She took her daughter's hand. This is someone I need to tell you about, sweetheart. Someone I should have told you about a long time ago. Iris studied Douglas with frank curiosity. She was not intimidated by strangers. She never had been. He has eyes like mine. The observation cut through all the careful preambles Vera had prepared. Yes, he does. Mom said I got my eyes from my father. Iris looked at Douglas directly. Are you my father? Douglas moved closer to the bed. He seemed uncertain where to stand, how near he was permitted to come. Yes, he said. I am your father. Iris considered this. Her expression was unreadable. Then she asked the question Vera had dreaded. Did you know about me before today? No. I did not. I only just found out. Why? Because there was a misunderstanding. Vera spoke carefully. A big one. Someone told me things that were not true, and I believed them. I thought your father did not want us. So I never told him about you. I was wrong. Iris looked back and forth between them, processing information with the particular intensity of a child who had learned to analyze rather than simply accept. So you are not a bad person, she said to Douglas. You did not stay away because you did not want me. No. I would have come the moment I knew. I would have been here from the beginning if I had known. And now you know. Now I know. Iris nodded slowly. The nod seemed to contain a decision being made. Good, she said. Because I have a lot of questions for you. I have answers. At least, I will try to have answers. That is all you can do. Mom says nobody has all the answers. The important thing is to keep trying. Douglas looked at Vera with something like wonder. Your mother is very wise. I know. She is the wisest person I know. Iris paused. Well, she was. Maybe now there are two wisest people. The corners of Douglas's mouth twitched. Something that might have been a smile, if smiles could exist in hospital rooms where children lay attached to 4 lines. I hope to earn that title, he said. I have a lot of catching up to do. Iris considered him for another long moment. Then she closed her book about coral reefs and set it aside. Do you know anything about the ocean? A little. I used to sail when I was younger. That is a start. Sit down. I want to tell you about octopuses. Douglas sat in the chair beside her bed, and Vera watched as her daughter began explaining the intelligence of cephalopods to the father she had never met. Outside the window, the last light of day faded from the sky. The hospital monitors beeped their steady rhythm. And something that had been broken for 10 years began, slowly, to find its way toward repair. 2 hours later, Iris had fallen asleep mid-sentence, her explanation of bioluminescence trailing off into the quiet breathing of exhausted childhood. Douglas sat beside her bed, watching her sleep, his face carrying an expression Vera did not quite recognize. She looks like you, Vera said quietly. When you smile. Douglas did not take his eyes off his daughter. She looks like herself, he said. That is the most important thing. They sat in silence for a while. The hospital sounds continued around them. Footsteps in the hallway. Distant voices. The soft beep of monitors measuring vital signs. What happens now? Vera asked finally. Now we wait for the compatibility test. They told me they can run it in the morning. We will know within a few days if I am a match. And if you are, then I give her whatever she needs. Bone marrow, blood, anything. Whatever it takes. And if you are not, then we keep looking. We do not stop until we find someone. Vera looked at this man, this stranger who was not a stranger, this father who was learning to be a father in real time. You are taking this very calmly. I am not calm. I am terrified. But terror is not useful right now. What is useful is staying focused on what needs to be done. You have changed. I have had 10 years to change. 10 years of running a company, managing crises, learning that panic solves nothing. 10 years of wondering what went wrong with the only relationship that ever really mattered to me. You thought about me. Douglas finally looked away from Iris. He met Vera's eyes. I thought about you every day for the first year. Every week for the year after that. Every month for a few years after that. And then less often, but never completely gone. You were always there, Vera. Like a question I could not answer. I thought about you too. Even when I tried not to. What did you think? I thought you had betrayed me. I thought you had chosen your family's expectations over what we had. I thought I had been naive to believe you would do otherwise. And now I do not know what to think. Everything I believed has turned out to be wrong. Everything I built my life around for 10 years was based on a lie. Not everything. Douglas nodded toward the sleeping girl in the hospital bed. She is not based on a lie. She is the most real thing either of us has ever done. Vera felt tears threatening again. She blinked them back. I raised her to be independent, she said. To not need anyone. To be strong enough to handle whatever life threw at her. I thought I was protecting her. From what? From disappointment. From relying on someone who might leave. From me. From anyone. But yes, from you especially. I thought if she never knew you, she could never be hurt by your absence. Douglas was quiet for a moment. That must have been lonely, he said finally. Carrying all of that by yourself. I did not think of it as lonely. I thought of it as necessary. What do you think of it now? Vera looked at her daughter, at the small face relaxed in sleep, at the hospital gown and the 4 lines and the monitors tracking her fragile hold on life. I think I was so busy protecting her from imaginary dangers that I did not prepare either of us for the real ones. I think I was so afraid of being hurt again that I hurt all 3 of us instead. We both made mistakes, Vera. We both believed things we should have questioned. We both let fear make our decisions for us. Your mother. Douglas held up his hand. My mother made a choice. A terrible choice, born out of whatever misguided sense of protection she thought she was offering me. She was wrong. Completely wrong. But she is dead now, and blaming her will not give us back what we lost. So what do? We focus on Iris. We make sure she survives. And then, once she is safe, we figure out what kind of relationship we can have. All 3 of us. You want to be part of her life. I want to be part of both your lives. If you will let me. Vera did not answer. She was not sure what answer to give. Everything was happening too fast, too much changing in too short a time. She had spent 10 years building walls, and now those walls were crumbling, and she did not know who she was without them. We should talk about practical things, she said, deflecting. Where you will stay. What happens with the testing? There is a hotel near the hospital. I can stay there. That seems unnecessary. You could stay at our house. We have a guest room. Are you sure? Iris will want you nearby. And you should not be driving back and forth when you are exhausted. Douglas nodded slowly. All right. If you are comfortable with that. I am comfortable with very little right now. But I am learning to be uncomfortable. It seems to be what the situation requires. They sat together in the quiet hospital room as the night deepened outside the window. 2 people who had once loved each other, now strangers with a shared history and a shared child, trying to find their way forward through uncertainty. At some point, a nurse came in to check Iris's vitals. She noted Douglas's presence without comment, simply recording the numbers on her chart and adjusting the 4 drip before slipping out again. You should get some rest, Douglas said. You look exhausted. I have not slept well since the diagnosis. When was that? 3 months ago. We have been in and out of the hospital ever since. 3 months. Douglas absorbed this. You have been dealing with this alone for 3 months. I have been dealing with most things alone for 10 years. This was just another thing. It should not have been. Vera shrugged. It is what it was. We cannot change it now. No. But we can make sure you are not alone going forward. Vera looked at him. In the dim light of the hospital room, with their daughter sleeping between them, he looked less like the polished executive she had encountered that afternoon and more like the man she remembered from 10 years ago. The man who had watched her work from the ballroom floor. The man who had shared late-night dinners in a kitchen that was not his own. The man who had spoken of futures that might have been real, if only they had both been braver. Why did you never marry? She asked. You said you came close. Twice. Douglas leaned back in his chair. Once about 5 years after you left. She was perfect on paper. Right family, right connections, everything my mother would have wanted. But every time I tried to imagine a future with her, something felt hollow. What happened? I called it off 3 weeks before the wedding. My mother did not speak to me for 6 months. And the second time. A few years later. Someone I met through work. She was brilliant, driven, completely independent. I thought maybe that was what I needed. Someone who would not remind me of you. Did it work? No. Because the problem was never finding someone who was not like you. The problem was that I kept looking for exactly what we had and being disappointed when I did not find it. I am sorry. Do not be. You did not do anything wrong. At least, not on that count. Vera almost smiled. So we are keeping score now. Douglas shook his head. No. We are not keeping score. We are just being honest. It has been a long time since either of us could be honest with each other. Yes. It has. The silence stretched between them, but it was a different quality of silence now. Less weighted with accusation. More weighted with exhaustion and something that might have been the beginning of understanding. I should go, Douglas said finally. Let you have the chair. You should try to sleep, even if it is not comfortable. There is a family lounge down the hall. There is a couch there that is marginally better. I will find the hotel. Get some real rest. Come back first thing in the morning. Douglas. Yes. Thank you. For coming. For not asking for proof or demanding time to think about it. For just coming. She is my daughter. He stood up, looking down at Iris one more time. There was nothing to think about. He left quietly, his footsteps fading down the hallway, and Vera was alone with her sleeping child and the weight of everything that had changed in a single day. She sat in the chair Douglas had vacated, still warm from his presence, and watched Iris breathe. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm. The night stretched on. She thought about the story she had told herself for 10 years. The story of Douglas Wainwright, the wealthy man who had treated her as a pleasant diversion. The story of her own strength and independence, the life she had built without him, the daughter she had raised alone. It had been a good story. A useful story. A story that had helped her survive heartbreak and rebuild herself into someone capable and self-sufficient. But it had also been a lie. Not her lie, exactly. Catherine Wainwright's lie, planted in her mind like a seed and allowed to grow until it blocked out everything else. She thought about Douglas's face when he saw the photograph. The shock and grief and something that looked like physical pain. She thought about the way he had said their daughter's name, as if tasting something precious and strange. She thought about the immediate decision to come, the refusal to let anything stand between him and the child he had just learned existed. That was not the behavior of a man who treated women as diversions. That was not the behavior of someone who had chosen family expectations over love. Catherine Wainwright had been wrong about her son. Or perhaps she had known exactly who her son was, and that was why she had worked so hard to separate them. Vera leaned her head back against the chair and closed her eyes. She did not expect to sleep. But exhaustion had its own demands, and eventually her body surrendered to them. She dreamed of a house on the river. A ballroom with gilded ceilings. A man with mismatched eyes watching her work. In the dream, he asked her a question. What are you restoring? And she answered without thinking. What was lost? She woke to the sound of voices. Morning light streamed through the hospital window. Iris was sitting up in bed, a breakfast tray in front of her, talking animatedly to Douglas, who sat in the chair Vera had apparently fallen asleep in. She must have moved to the couch at some point. She did not remember doing it. Mom. Iris noticed she was awake. Dad is back. He brought me a book about cephalopods. Douglas held up a hardcover book with a brilliantly colored octopus on the cover. The gift shop had surprisingly good options, he said. Vera sat up, disoriented. Dad. Iris had said Dad. As if it were the most natural thing in the world. How long have you been here? About an hour. I did not want to wake you. You looked like you needed the rest. You should have woken me. Your daughter and I were getting to know each other. Iris has very strong opinions about conservation policy. Overfishing is destroying entire ecosystems, Iris said earnestly. Did you know that some species of shark have declined by over 90%? I did not know that, no. It is very concerning. Someone should do something about it. Perhaps someone will. Douglas glanced at Vera with a slight smile. Perhaps someone with a marine biology degree and strong opinions. Iris considered this. That is a long-term plan. Right now I need to focus on getting better. The words brought Vera fully awake. The morning light, the cheerful conversation about octopuses and sharks, the surreal normalcy of seeing Douglas and Iris together. All of it had momentarily obscured the reason they were here. When is the testing? She asked Douglas. They are coming at 9 to draw blood. Results within 48 to 72 hours. Vera looked at the clock on the wall. 8:30. You should eat something first, she told Douglas. You cannot give blood on an empty stomach. I grabbed something at the hotel. The hotel food is terrible, Iris informed him. Mom says hospital food is bad, but hotel food is worse because it pretends to be better. Your mother has strong opinions too. I get it from her. Douglas laughed. It was a strange sound in the hospital room, unexpected and almost startling. Vera could not remember the last time she had heard him laugh. She could not remember the last time she had heard herself laugh either. Dr. Porter arrived at precisely 9 o'clock, accompanied by a technician with a cart of blood-drawing supplies. Mr. Wainwright, I presume. She shook Douglas's hand. I understand you came as soon as you learned about the situation. I did. We are going to run a complete tissue typing panel. The results will tell us whether you are compatible as a bone marrow donor. The testing itself is straightforward, just a blood draw. Whatever you need, Douglas said. Take as much as necessary. 1 vial will be sufficient for this test. The technician prepared Douglas's arm while Dr. Porter explained the process to Iris. If your father is a match, we will schedule the transplant for as soon as possible. He will go through a procedure to harvest bone marrow from his hip, and then we will give that marrow to you. Your body will use it to make healthy blood cells again. Will it hurt him? There is some discomfort, yes. But nothing that does not heal quickly. Iris looked at Douglas, who was watching the technician fill a vial with his blood. Thank you for doing this, she said. You did not have to. Yes, Douglas said quietly. I did. The waiting was the hardest part. For 48 hours, they existed in a state of suspended animation. Douglas stayed at Vera's house, in the guest room that had never had a guest. He drove with her to the hospital each morning and stayed until visiting hours ended. He read books about the ocean with Iris. He asked her questions about her life, her friends, her school, her dreams. He listened to her answers with the hungry attention of someone trying to absorb 9 years of information in a matter of days. Vera watched this. She did not know what to feel. On the second evening, after Iris had fallen asleep and they had returned to the house, Douglas sat on the porch with a glass of whiskey and stared at the stars. She is remarkable, he said. You have done an incredible job with her. We have done an incredible job. Vera sat beside him. Even if you did not know it. I wish I could take credit. But everything she is, everything she knows, everything she believes about the world, that is you. It is her, mostly. She has always been her own person. I just tried to give her room to figure out who that person was. Douglas sipped his whiskey. My mother would have tried to shape her. To mold her into something appropriate. Someone suitable. I know. That was one of the reasons I never told you. And the other reasons. Vera was quiet for a moment. I thought you would try to take her from me. Or that your family would. I imagined lawyers and custody battles and growing up in a world where I did not belong. I imagined her learning to be ashamed of where she came from. Do you still imagine that? I do not know what I imagine anymore. Everything has changed too fast. For what it is worth, Douglas said slowly, I never want to take her from you. I never want her to be ashamed of anything. I just want to be part of her life. Whatever part you are willing to share. Vera looked at him in the darkness. What about us? What about us? Is there still an us? Or are we just two people who share a daughter? Douglas set down his glass. I do not know how to answer that. I know that when I saw you in my study, my heart stopped. I know that I have thought about you more in the last 2 days than I have in the last 2 years. I know that sitting here with you, in this quiet house in Vermont, feels more like home than Thornfield ever did. But you kept my daughter from me for 9 years. And I understand why. I understand the fear and the anger and the protective instinct. But it happened. And I do not know how to just set that aside. I am not asking you to set it aside. I am just asking what happens next. Douglas was quiet for a long moment. What happens next is we find out if I can save her life. And then, once she is safe, we figure out the rest. And if she is not safe, then we focus on making her safe. And we do not stop until she is. The call came on the 3rd morning. Mrs. Mercer, this is Dr. Porter. I have the results of the tissue typing. Vera gripped her phone so hard her fingers hurt. And Mr. Wainwright is a match. A strong one. We can proceed with the transplant as soon as you are ready. Vera closed her eyes. For a moment, she could not speak. Mrs. Mercer. Are you there? Yes. I am here. I am just. Can you tell him? Can you tell him yourself? I can. Is he with you? Vera looked across the kitchen to where Douglas was standing, a cup of coffee forgotten in his hand, watching her face with barely concealed terror. Yes, she said. He is right here. She handed him the phone. She watched his expression change as Dr. Porter delivered the news. She watched the fear dissolve into something else. Relief. Joy. Determination. When do we schedule the procedure? He said into the phone. I want to do it as soon as possible. Today if we can. He listened to the answer. Nodded. Asked a few more questions. Handed the phone back to Vera. Tomorrow, he said. They are prepping her today. The harvest is tomorrow morning. The transplant tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. Vera sat down at the kitchen table. Her legs felt unsteady. It is really happening. It is really happening. You are going to save her life. Douglas crossed to the table and sat across from her. He reached out and took her hand. The gesture was tentative, questioning. She did not pull away. We are going to save her life, he said. Together. For the first time in months, Vera allowed herself to believe that it might actually be true. The morning of the transplant arrived with a kind of pale grey light that made everything feel suspended between night and day. Vera had not slept. She had lain in her bed listening to the house settle around her, listening to the unfamiliar sound of someone else breathing in the guest room down the hall, listening to her own heart beat its anxious rhythm against her ribs. At 5 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and went to the kitchen. Douglas was already there, sitting at the table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold. You could not sleep either, she said. No. I kept thinking about everything that could go wrong. The doctors say the procedure is routine. Nothing about this is routine. Douglas looked up at her. 9 years of not knowing I had a daughter. 3 days of knowing her. And now I'm going to let them take something from inside my bones and give it to her. It is terrifying. You do not have to pretend to be calm. Not with me. I am not pretending. I am trying to hold myself together long enough to get through the next 24 hours. After that, I can fall apart. Vera sat down across from him. You are not going to fall apart. How do you know? Because I have watched you with her. You are steady. You are present. You do not flinch from hard things. I have flinched from plenty of hard things in my life. Telling my mother the truth about us. Fighting for you when you disappeared. Being brave enough to look for you longer. You looked for a year. I should have looked forever. The words hung between them in the early morning quiet. Vera did not know what to say. There was too much history, too much pain, too much that could not be undone with words. We should get ready, she said finally. The hospital wants us there by 7. The drive to Burlington General was silent except for the hum of the engine and the occasional murmur of morning traffic. Douglas drove while Vera sat in the passenger seat and watched the familiar street scroll past. She had driven these roads hundreds of times. To grocery stores and doctor appointments and school events. To playdates and birthday parties and emergency room visits for childhood fevers. She had driven them alone, always alone, carrying the weight of single parenthood like a stone she had grown so accustomed to that she had forgotten it was heavy. Now someone else was in the car. Someone else was sharing the drive. Someone else was facing the hospital with her instead of waiting at home for news. It felt strange. It felt almost wrong, after so many years of doing everything herself. But it also felt like something she had not allowed herself to want for a very long time. It felt like relief. Iris was awake when they arrived. She was sitting up in bed, her hospital gown crisp and fresh, her expression a mixture of excitement and fear that she was trying very hard to hide. You are here, she said. Both of you. We are here. Vera kissed her forehead. How are you feeling? Nervous. But the nurses said that is normal. She looked at Douglas. Are you nervous too? Very. Good. I do not want to be the only one. Douglas sat in the chair beside her bed and took her hand. We are going to be nervous together. And then we are going to be relieved together. And then we are going to be healthy together. Promise. Promise. Iris studied his face for a moment. You know, you do not have to make promises you cannot keep. I am 9. I understand that sometimes things do not work out the way we want them to. Douglas squeezed her hand. I know you understand that. You are very wise for 9. But I am going to make this promise anyway, because I believe it is true. You are going to get better. I am going to help you get better. And then we are going to have a lot of years to make up for lost time. What if something goes wrong? Then we will deal with it together. All 3 of us. But I do not think anything is going to go wrong. How do you know? Because I have spent my whole life being careful and cautious and afraid of things that might go wrong. And all that fear did was keep me from the people I was supposed to love. So I am done being afraid. I am choosing to believe that good things are possible. Iris considered this. That is a very optimistic way of looking at things. I know. I am trying something new. The medical team arrived at 8 o'clock to begin preparations. Dr. Porter explained the procedure one more time, walking them through each step with calm precision. Douglas would be taken to a surgical suite where doctors would extract bone marrow from his hip using a specialized needle. The procedure would take about 2 hours. He would experience soreness and fatigue afterward, but most donors recovered fully within a few weeks. The harvested marrow would then be processed and prepared for transplant. Iris would receive it through her central line, the same way she received her other medications. Her body would take several weeks to begin producing healthy blood cells again. During that time, she would be vulnerable to infection and would need to stay in a protected environment. It sounded simple when explained in clinical terms. It felt anything but simple when Douglas was wheeled away on a gurney and Vera was left alone with her daughter in the quiet hospital room. Mom. Iris's voice was small. What if his marrow does not work? It will work. But what if it does not? Then we will find another option. There is always another option. You sound like him now. Vera looked at her daughter. Maybe that is not a bad thing. The 2 hours of waiting were the longest of Vera's life. She sat beside Iris's bed and they played cards and read books and watched a documentary about whale migration. They talked about everything except what was happening in the surgical suite down the hall. They talked about school and friends and the garden at home that would need tending when Iris was well enough to be discharged. They did not talk about the future. The future felt too fragile to discuss, like something that might shatter if examined too closely. At 10:15, Dr. Porter appeared in the doorway. The harvest was successful. Mr. Wainwright is in recovery. He is doing well. Vera closed her eyes. Thank you. We will begin preparing the marrow for transplant now. Iris should receive it this afternoon. Can I see him? Iris asked. Before the transplant. Can I see my dad? Dr. Porter smiled. I think that can be arranged. They wheeled Douglas into Iris's room an hour later. He was pale and tired, lying flat on a hospital bed, but his eyes were alert and he smiled when he saw his daughter. Hey, he said. How are you doing? I should be asking you that. You are the one who just had surgery. It was not really surgery. Just a very aggressive needle. That sounds worse than surgery. Douglas laughed, then winced. Do not make me laugh. It hurts. Sorry. Iris's expression grew serious. Does it hurt a lot? Some. But it is the kind of hurt that means something good is happening. That is what the nurse told me. That sounds like something Mom would say. Your mother is very wise. So people keep telling me. Vera watched this exchange from her chair in the corner. Father and daughter, speaking to each other with the easy rhythm of people who had known each other for years instead of days. There was something natural about their connection, something that went beyond blood types and genetic compatibility. Maybe some bonds were written into cells. Maybe some relationships were waiting to happen, just needing the right moment to begin. Douglas reached out his hand toward Iris. I want you to know something, he said. Before they give you my marrow. What? I want you to know that this is not me trying to buy my way into your life. This is not me thinking that giving you something means you owe me anything. This is just me doing what any father would do for his child. What is that? Whatever it takes to keep you safe. Iris took his hand. "I know," she said. "I already know." The transplant itself was anticlimactic. After all the preparation and fear and waiting, it was simply a bag of reddish fluid dripping slowly through a tube into Iris's central line. It took about an hour. Iris slept through most of it, her small body relaxed against the pillows, her monitors beeping their steady reassurance. Douglas had been moved back to his own room to recover, but he sent messages through the nurses every 15 minutes. "How is she doing? Is everything okay? Tell her I am thinking about her." Vera sat beside her daughter's bed and watched the marrow flow into her veins. Douglas's marrow. Douglas's cells. Part of him becoming part of Iris, merging with her blood, teaching her body how to heal itself. It was a kind of intimacy she had never expected to witness. A father giving his daughter life in a way that was both medical and almost mystical. The boundaries between their bodies blurring, if only temporarily, as one person's health poured into another. Vera thought about the last 9 years. All the ways she had kept Douglas out of their lives. All the justifications she had made. All the walls she had built. None of those walls had protected Iris from getting sick. None of that independence had been able to save her daughter's life. In the end, the man she had run from was the only one who could help. There was a lesson in that, she thought. Something about the limits of self-reliance. Something about the danger of believing you could do everything alone. The days after the transplant were a blur of medical monitoring and cautious optimism. Iris's white blood cell counts were watched like weather forecasts. Every slight increase was cause for hope. Every plateau was cause for concern. The medical team spoke in percentages and probabilities, careful not to promise too much, careful not to take away hope. Douglas stayed in Burlington. He rented an apartment near the hospital and visited every day, sometimes twice a day. He brought books and puzzles and a portable aquarium with 2 clownfish that he set up on Iris's windowsill. "You cannot bring fish into a hospital," the head nurse had said when he arrived with the tank. "The fish are in a sealed environment. They pose no infection risk. And my daughter loves the ocean." The nurse had looked at Iris, who was staring at the fish with more animation than she had shown in days. "Fine," the nurse said. "But if anyone asks, I did not see anything." Douglas settled into a routine. Mornings at the hospital, reading with Iris or watching nature documentaries or playing the elaborate card games she invented with rules that seemed to change whenever she was losing. Afternoons handling business remotely, video calls and emails, and the endless demands of running a company from a distance. Evenings back at the hospital for dinner, sitting beside Iris's bed, talking about everything and nothing. Vera watched this. She watched and waited and tried to understand what she was seeing. This was not the behavior of a man who saw fatherhood as an obligation. This was not someone going through the motions, checking boxes, doing the minimum required. This was genuine presence. Genuine attention. Genuine love, growing day by day like a plant finally given sunlight. 3 weeks after the transplant, Dr. Porter delivered the news they had been waiting for. "Her counts are coming up. The marrow is engrafting beautifully. If she continues at this rate, she could be discharged within 2 weeks." Vera sat down heavily in the nearest chair. "She is going to be okay. She is going to be okay. There will be follow-up care, monitoring, precautions. But yes, she is going to be okay." Douglas, who had been standing by the window, crossed the room and knelt in front of Vera's chair. His eyes were wet. "She is going to be okay," he repeated. "Our daughter is going to be okay. Our daughter." The phrase caught in Vera's throat. She had spent 9 years thinking of Iris as her daughter. Hers alone. The possessive pronoun had been a wall, a boundary, a way of keeping the world at a safe distance. But looking at Douglas now, seeing the tears on his face, feeling the weight of what they had survived together, she could not pretend that wall still stood. "Yes," she said. "Our daughter is going to be okay." The discharge came on a Tuesday. Iris walked out of the hospital on her own feet, moving slowly but steadily, holding her mother's hand on one side and her father's on the other. "Freedom," she declared as they stepped into the autumn sunshine. "Fresh air. Trees. Sky." "You act like you have been in prison," Douglas said. "Hospital is basically prison with better pudding. The pudding is not that good. It is better than prison pudding. Have you ever had prison pudding?" "No. But I am making assumptions." Vera laughed. It was the first real laugh she had produced in months. Douglas looked at her with an expression of surprised delight. "You should laugh more often," he said. "I forgot what it sounds like. I forgot what it feels like." They drove to Vera's house, the small craftsman cottage where Iris had grown up. Douglas helped carry the bags of medication and discharge instructions. He followed them inside and stood in the living room, looking around at the life he had missed. "It is lovely," he said. "This house. You built something good here. We managed." "You did more than manage." Iris had already disappeared into her room, reuniting with the possessions she had been separated from during her hospital stay. Vera could hear her talking to her collection of stuffed animals, explaining where she had been and what had happened. "Douglas," Vera said, "we need to talk about what happens next. I know. You have been here for almost a month. You have responsibilities back in New York. A company. A life. I have responsibilities here too." Douglas sat down on the couch. "I have a daughter who is recovering from a life-threatening illness. I have 9 years of relationship to build. I have a woman I once loved who I am trying to figure out how to be around." "What do you mean, trying to figure out?" "I mean I do not know what we are. I do not know what you want us to be. I do not know if you can ever forgive me for what my mother did, even though I was not the one who did it." Vera sat down in the chair across from him. "I do not blame you for what your mother did. But you have not forgiven me either. I can feel it. There is a wall between us, and I do not know how to get past it." Vera was quiet for a long moment. "It is not about forgiveness," she said finally. "It is about trust. I trusted you once. Completely. And when I thought you betrayed that trust, it broke something in me. Learning that you did not actually betray me, that it was all your mother's manipulation, that does not automatically fix what was broken. So what does fix it? I do not know. Time. Maybe. Proof. Proof of what? Proof that you are who you say you are. Proof that you will be here not just for the dramatic moments, but for the ordinary ones. Proof that when things get boring or difficult or inconvenient, you will not disappear." Douglas leaned forward. "What kind of ordinary moments?" "School pickups when you have important meetings. Sick days when you are tired from traveling. Homework help and bedtime stories and arguments about screen time. The mundane stuff that makes up an actual life. I want all of that." "You think you want all of that?" "Vera, I have spent 10 years running a company, managing crises, being responsible for thousands of employees. I have proven I can show up when things are hard. Let me prove I can show up when things are ordinary." "How?" "Give me a year. 1 year of being part of your lives. Not as a visitor, not as a special occasion, but as someone who is just here. Present. Consistent. Let me show up for the boring things. And at the end of the year, if you still do not trust me, I will accept that. I will still be Iris's father, but I will accept whatever boundaries you need." Vera studied his face. The earnestness in his expression. The way he was not demanding or insisting, but asking. Offering himself up for evaluation, willing to be tested. A year. A year. Starting now. She thought about what that would mean. Douglas in their lives, regularly, substantially. Watching him, evaluating him, waiting for him to fail or prove himself. It would be exhausting. It would be uncomfortable. It would require her to let down walls she had spent a decade building. But it would also give Iris what she had always deserved. A father who was present. A father who wanted to be there. A father who was willing to earn his place instead of assuming it. "All right," Vera said. 1 year. Douglas smiled. It was a small smile, cautious, as if he was afraid to celebrate too early. "Thank you," he said. "I will not let you down." The first 3 months were the hardest. Douglas rented a house in Burlington, close enough to be available but far enough to give Vera space. He showed up every day, not just for the fun things, but for the tedious necessities of life with a recovering child. He drove Iris to medical appointments. He sat in waiting rooms reading magazines about home decoration because they were the only magazines available. He learned which pharmacy had the shortest lines and which grocery store stocked the particular brand of crackers Iris preferred. He also learned that parenting was not glamorous. It was not dramatic hospital vigils and heroic medical donations. It was arguments about vegetables and negotiations about homework and the bone-deep exhaustion that came from being responsible for a small human who had strong opinions about everything. "Dad, I do not want to take my pills." "I know you do not want to. But you have to. They taste terrible." "I believe you. But they are keeping you healthy. Can you make them taste better?" "I do not think that is within my power." "Then what is the point of being rich?" Douglas had laughed at that, and Vera, listening from the kitchen, had felt something warm spread through her chest. He was doing it. He was actually doing it. Showing up for the boring parts. Being present when there was no audience, no crisis, no drama. Just the ordinary work of being a family. At the end of 3 months, Iris asked Vera a question. "Is Dad going to stay?" "What do you mean?" "I mean forever. Is he going to stay forever?" Vera considered her answer carefully. "I think he wants to," she said. "I think he is trying very hard to show us that he means it." "Do you believe him?" "I am starting to." "Good. Because I like having him around. He is funny and he reads to me and he does not treat me like I am made of glass." "He loves you." "I know." Iris paused. "Do you love him?" The question caught Vera off guard. "That is complicated, sweetheart. Everything is complicated. That does not mean you cannot answer." "I do not know if I love him anymore. I loved him once, a long time ago. And then I thought he hurt me, so I stopped. Now I am learning that he did not hurt me, and I am trying to figure out what that means." Iris nodded, as if this made perfect sense. "Maybe you could start over," she said. "Pretend you just met him. See if you like who he is now. When did you get so wise?" "I have always been wise. You just did not notice because you were busy being responsible for everything." At 6 months, Douglas had proven himself in ways Vera had not expected. He had been there when Iris got the flu and needed someone to stay with her while Vera met a deadline for work. He had been there for parent-teacher conferences, sitting beside Vera in tiny chairs designed for children, asking thoughtful questions about curriculum and social development. He had been there for the soccer game that Iris insisted on attending even though she was too tired to play, cheering from the sidelines like any other parent. He had also been there for the hard conversations. The nights when Iris woke up afraid, haunted by dreams of hospitals and needles. The afternoons when she was tired of being careful, tired of taking pills, tired of being the sick kid who had to miss things. The moments when she cried for no reason except that her body was still recovering and emotions came more easily than they used to. Douglas did not try to fix these moments. He did not offer solutions or platitudes. He just sat with her, held her hand, let her feel whatever she was feeling until it passed. Vera watched this. She watched and took notes and slowly, reluctantly, began to believe. One evening, after Iris had gone to bed, Douglas and Vera sat on the porch as they had done so many times before. The spring peepers were singing in the darkness. The air smelled of rain and new growth. 6 months, Douglas said. Halfway through. I know. How am I doing? Vera looked at him. Really looked at him, the way she had been afraid to look for months. You are doing well, she admitted. Better than I expected. That is not exactly a ringing endorsement. I am not good at endorsements. I am good at skepticism. I have noticed. Silence stretched between them. Comfortable now, in a way it had not been before. They had accumulated enough shared experience that silence was no longer threatening. Douglas, she said, can I ask you something? Anything. What do you want? Not from Iris. From me. What do you actually want? Douglas turned to face her. I want what I wanted 10 years ago, he said. A life with you. A family. Something real and complicated and difficult and worth it. Even after everything that happened. Especially after everything that happened. Do you know what I realized, Vera? In all those years of looking for someone to replace you, I realized that I was not looking for someone to love me. I was looking for someone who would challenge me. Who would not be impressed by my money or my name. Who would make me earn every inch of ground. And you think that is me. I know that is you. You have been making me earn it for 6 months now. And I would earn it for another 60 years if that is what it takes. Vera felt something shift inside her. Something that had been clenched and guarded for a very long time, slowly beginning to relax. "I am not ready to say yes," she said, "to whatever you are asking. I am not asking anything. Not yet. I am just telling you what I want. The rest is up to you. What if I never say yes? Then I will still be here. Being Iris's father. Being your friend, if you will have me. Showing up for the ordinary things. That seems like a lot of effort for someone who might never give you what you want." Douglas shrugged. "Love is not a transaction. I do not love you because I expect something in return. I love you because you are you. The return is in the loving, not in the receiving." Vera stared at him. "That is surprisingly poetic for a logistics executive. I have had a lot of time to think about these things. At 9 months, something unexpected happened. Douglas got a call from his company. There was a crisis. A major deal falling apart, partners threatening to walk, the kind of situation that usually required his immediate presence in New York. Vera found out when she came home to find him on the phone, pacing in the kitchen, his voice tense and professional. "I understand the urgency," he was saying. "But I have obligations here. I cannot just drop everything." She stood in the doorway and watched him navigate the conversation. Watched him try to balance the demands of his company against the promises he had made. "I will be there by video conference," he said finally. "I will give you whatever time you need remotely. But I am not flying to New York right now. Find a way to make it work." He ended the call and looked at Vera. "You heard that?" "I heard. It is a big deal. Literally. Billions of dollars. And you are not going?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I made a promise. I said I would be here for the ordinary things. I said I would not disappear when it was inconvenient. This seems like more than an inconvenience." Douglas ran a hand through his hair. "Vera, there will always be a crisis. There will always be something urgent, something important, something that demands my attention. If I let every crisis pull me away, I will never be here. I will always be somewhere else, handling something that seems more pressing. So you are choosing us. Over billions of dollars. I am choosing what matters over what is just expensive." Vera crossed the kitchen and stood in front of him. They had not touched, not really, since the early days of the hospital. Brief contacts, hands on shoulders, but nothing intentional, nothing that meant something. She reached out and took his hand. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For choosing us. For meaning what you said. I always mean what I say. I just needed the chance to prove it. You are proving it." At 1 year, Vera was ready. They were sitting on the porch again, as they had so many times before. It was October now, a full year since Iris's transplant, a full year since Douglas had come back into their lives. The leaves were turning red and gold, and the air had that particular crispness that came only in autumn. "Douglas," she said, "I have something to tell you." He turned to look at her. There was uncertainty in his face. Hope and fear and the vulnerability of someone who had spent a year waiting for a verdict. "A year ago," Vera continued, "I told you I needed proof. I told you I needed to see you show up for the ordinary things, not just the dramatic ones. I told you I needed time to learn to trust again. I remember. You have given me that proof. Every day for a year. You have been here when it was easy and when it was hard. You have been patient and consistent and present. You have been everything you promised to be." Douglas waited. "I am ready now," Vera said. "To try. To see if we can be more than co-parents. To see if what we had 10 years ago can become something new. Something new. Not the same as before. We are different people now. But something based on who we are now, not who we were then." Douglas reached for her hand. "I would like that," he said. "I would like that very much. I am still scared. So am I. But I am more scared of letting fear make my decisions. I am more scared of spending the rest of my life wondering what could have been." Douglas leaned closer. "Can I kiss you?" Vera smiled. The first truly open smile she had allowed herself in longer than she could remember. "Yes," she said. "You can kiss me." The kiss was gentle. Tentative. The kiss of two people who had known each other once and were learning each other again. It held all the years of separation and all the hope of what might come next. When they pulled apart, Iris was standing in the doorway, watching them with an expression of profound satisfaction. "Finally," she said. "I thought you two were never going to figure it out. You were watching. I have been watching for a year. You are both very slow." Douglas laughed. "We wanted to be sure." "Were you sure?" "We are now." Iris crossed the porch and inserted herself between them, wrapping an arm around each of their waists. "Good," she said. "Because I have been planning the wedding for months." "No one said anything about a wedding," Vera protested. "Not yet. But you will." Iris looked up at Douglas. "Right, Dad." Douglas looked at Vera, and she saw something in his eyes that made her heart skip. "Eventually," he said. "When your mother is ready." The proposal came 6 months later, on a spring evening when the garden was blooming and Iris was at a sleepover with friends. Douglas took Vera to dinner at a quiet restaurant in town. Nothing fancy, nothing ostentatious. Just good food and conversation and the comfortable intimacy they had built over almost 2 years. Afterward, they walked through the neighborhood, past houses with lights in the windows, past families living their ordinary lives. "I have something to ask you," Douglas said. Vera's heart quickened. "I think I know what it is." "Then let me ask it anyway." He stopped walking and turned to face her. From his pocket, he produced a small velvet box. "Vera, I have spent the last 2 years earning the right to ask this question. I have shown up for the school pickups and the sick days and the arguments about vegetables. I have proven that I am not going anywhere. Now I want to make that official." He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant, a single diamond that caught the streetlight. "Will you marry me?" Vera looked at the ring, at the man holding it, at the life they had built together, piece by piece, through patience and persistence and the daily choice to show up. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you." Douglas slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "Iris is going to be insufferable about this," Vera said. "She predicted it months ago. Iris is wise beyond her years. She gets it from both of us." The wedding was small. Just family and close friends, gathered in the garden of the house in Vermont. Iris served as the flower girl, scattering petals with a kind of theatrical flair that suggested she had been practicing for weeks. The ceremony was simple. Vows that spoke of second chances and earned trust. Promises to keep showing up, day after day, through the ordinary and the extraordinary. A kiss that sealed something that had been broken and was now whole again. Afterward, they sat together on the porch, Vera and Douglas and Iris, watching the sun set over the mountains. "We are officially a family now," Iris announced. "It is on paper." "We were always a family," Douglas said. "The paper just makes it legal." "I like legal. It means nobody can change their mind." "Nobody was going to change their mind," Vera said. "I know. But now I have proof." The years that followed were not perfect. No family's years are perfect. There were arguments and misunderstandings and the inevitable friction that comes from 3 strong-willed people sharing a life. There were times when Douglas's business demanded more than he wanted to give. Times when Vera's independence clashed with partnership. Times when Iris, growing into a teenager, tested every boundary her parents tried to set. But through it all, they showed up for each other. They kept the promises they had made. They built something that neither of them had dared to imagine in those dark days when everything seemed lost. Douglas eventually moved his company headquarters to Burlington. He restructured the business to allow for more remote work, more family time, less of the constant travel that had characterized his earlier career. He told the board that his priorities had changed, and if they did not like it, they could find another CEO. They found a way to accommodate him. Vera expanded her restoration business. She took on bigger projects, hired employees, built a reputation that extended far beyond Vermont. But she also learned to delegate, to trust others, to accept that she did not have to do everything herself. Independence, she discovered, did not mean isolation. Strength did not mean carrying every burden alone. Iris grew up healthy and strong. Her cancer never returned. She went to college, studied marine biology as she had always planned, and eventually took a job with an ocean conservation organization. She traveled the world documenting the effects of climate change on coral reefs, sending home videos of exotic fish and passionate lectures about the importance of protecting what remained. She also, eventually, fell in love. A quiet young woman she met at a research station in the Philippines. Someone who asked good questions and listened to the answers. Someone who reminded her, in certain ways, of her father. When Iris brought her home to meet her parents, Douglas and Vera welcomed her without hesitation. They had learned, after all, the cost of trying to control who someone loved. They had no interest in repeating the mistakes of the past. The wedding was held in the garden in Vermont, just as her parents' wedding had been. Iris wore a dress that her mother had helped her choose. Douglas walked her down the aisle with tears in his eyes. "Thank you," Iris whispered to him before she took her place at the altar. "For coming when Mom called. For saving my life. For staying. Thank you for giving me the chance," Douglas whispered back. "Everything I have now, everything that matters, started with you." That evening, after the guests had gone and the newlyweds had departed for their honeymoon, Douglas and Vera sat together on the porch swing, looking up at the stars. "We did it," Vera said. "We raised her. She is happy. We did it together. Eventually together. Together counts. It does not matter when it started. It matters that it continued." Vera leaned against her husband's shoulder. She thought about the journey that had brought them here. The lies and the secrets. The years of separation and the months of rebuilding. The daily choice to trust, to forgive, to keep showing up even when it was hard. She thought about Catherine Wainwright, dead now for over a decade, her manipulation long since exposed and set aside. Catherine had believed she was protecting her family. She had been convinced that Vera was a threat, that Douglas's love was a weakness that needed to be corrected. She had lied and schemed and destroyed something beautiful, all in the name of knowing what was best. But in the end, her lies had not held. The truth had emerged, as truth always does, and the family she had tried to prevent had formed anyway. Douglas and Vera and Iris, bound together by blood and choice and the patient work of learning to trust again. Catherine had won nothing. Her victory had been an illusion. And she had died without ever knowing how completely her plans had failed. There was a kind of justice in that, Vera thought. Not the loud, dramatic justice of confrontations and reckonings, but the quiet, irrevocable justice of consequence. The manipulator's schemes undone not by revenge, but by the simple persistence of love. "Do you ever think about your mother?" Vera asked Douglas. "Sometimes," he admitted. "I think about what she was afraid of. What she thought she was protecting. I think about how different things might have been if she had just let us be." "Do you forgive her?" "I try to. Not for her sake. She is gone. It does not matter to her anymore. I try to forgive her for my own sake. So I do not carry the anger around with me." "Has it worked?" "Mostly. There are still moments when I think about the years I missed with Iris. The birthdays and holidays and ordinary days that I will never get back. And in those moments, I feel the anger rise up again." "What do you do when that happens?" "I remind myself what I have now. I look at you and Iris and the life we have built. And I ask myself whether I would trade any of it for revenge on someone who is no longer here to receive it." "Would you?" "No. Not for anything." Vera took his hand. "I spent so many years being angry," she said. "At you, at your mother, at myself. I thought the anger was protecting me, keeping me safe. But it was really just keeping me stuck." "What changed?" "You came back. Iris got sick, and you came back, and you stayed. And I had to choose between the anger and the possibility of something better. I chose better. I am glad you did. So am I." They sat together in the darkness, two people who had traveled a long road to find each other. The journey had not been easy. It had been marked by loss and deception and the slow, painful work of rebuilding trust. But they had arrived, finally, at something that felt like home. Some stories end with villains punished and heroes triumphant. With loud declarations and dramatic confrontations. With justice served in ways that everyone can see and celebrate. This story did not end that way. This story ended with two people on a porch swing, watching the stars, holding hands in the darkness. With a daughter who had grown up healthy and strong, now building a family of her own. with a life that had been assembled piece by piece from the wreckage of loss. The only villain had been dead for years, her schemes long since unraveled by the simple persistence of those she had tried to destroy. There would be no confrontation, no reckoning, no dramatic moment of justice delivered. There would only be this. The quiet continuation of love. The daily choice to show up, to be present, to build something lasting. The ordinary miracle of family, earned through patience and forgiveness and time. That was the justice that mattered. Not punishment, but consequence. Not revenge, but redemption. Not the satisfaction of seeing enemies defeated, but the deeper satisfaction of seeing love survive. Vera closed her eyes and listened to her husband breathe beside her. She thought about all the choices that had led to this moment. The mistakes and the fears and the lies and the truths. The years of separation and the years of togetherness. It had all been worth it. Every painful step of the journey had led to here. To home. To peace. And that, she understood at last, was the only ending that mattered. Not dramatic. Not loud. Not the stuff of headlines or spectacular revelations. Just two people who had found their way back to each other, sitting on a porch in the darkness, grateful for everything they had almost lost and everything they still had. Just love, patient and quiet and enduring. Just family, earned rather than given. Just life, continuing on, one ordinary day at a time. The end.